Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Donatello, and if you're watching this video, then you or someone you know or love is suffering from a thyroid condition, and your health is nowhere near where it was 3, 5, 7, 10 years ago. And you're searching for answers, and I want to let you know that you've come to the right place for answers, because my office now is probably 75% thyroid-based. And I'm going to tell you in the next 10, 15 minutes how we do that, how we treat this differently than all the other doctors in this area for sure, and how we get results, consistent results with people with exactly the condition that you're suffering with. Okay? So who am I? My name is Jeff Donatello. Like I mentioned before, I am a chiropractor. Why is a chiropractor helping people with these problems? Well, this is why. Because 3 years ago, I found out that my wife, Kathleen, had a thyroid condition. She had Hashimoto's thyroid disease, which is what 90% of people with an underactive thyroid gland have. Most people don't have just an underactive thyroid gland, they have autoimmune thyroid disease, and that's what Hashimoto's is. So getting back to my wife, Kathleen suffered with this condition for many, many years. About 3 years ago, I did a lot of studying, came across some people that understood how to work this problem, not in a real simplistic way, but in a way of understanding the whole body, because that's what you're going to find out. All this can be real complicated, and you have to make the body healthier and find out what's driving that thyroid. We're going to talk about that tonight. So anyways, after working on Kathleen, we found out that she had some specific food sensitivities, and we got her better very quickly. And then I started working on more people found out about what I was doing, and before long, my practice was mainly thyroid disease. Okay? So one thing I got to get up front here is we do not take you off your meds. All right? You need to work with your doctor continually. What I'm going to do is take that condition and calm it down and make things, you've had probably more bad days than good days. We're going to make way more good days than bad days. You have a condition that's not going away, but it needs to be managed properly, not just taking medication. All right? There's a lot more than just taking meds. The vast majority of people that come in here need those meds. Those meds are miraculous. They really help you. But some don't. The vast majority do, but what's happened is you haven't found out what's causing your problem, and we're going to talk about that tonight, okay, in this video. So really, I want you to look at this information. If it makes sense to you, that is treating the whole person, all right, not just taking a pill, but actually looking at what's causing your problem, then make an appointment, all right, at the end of this video. Call on the phone, okay? We'll show you how to do that later on, all right? So if you're watching this, then you probably have low energy. Your energy is probably in the toilet. You probably have maybe thinning of the outer third of your eyebrows, your hair is starting to fall out, your sleeping is bad, your chronic diarrhea, IBS, maybe constipation, headaches, whatever it is. Those are all symptoms of hypothyroidism. Okay? But it's not just a sluggish thyroid. It's really much more than that, 90% of the people. And this is all based on 2011 information. This is all clinically referenced information. It's out there, folks. It's there. It's just your MD is not doing what we're doing, and that's why you're still sick and tired. And that's why you don't know what's going on, and neither do they, and they just keep messing around with your drugs. And they don't really get to the cause, and that's what I do here. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about what happens with the thyroid. Again, it gets real complex, but everyone's problem is different. There's 6 basic patterns that people have issues with when it comes to the thyroid gland. Number 1 is a sluggish thyroid. 10% of people have a sluggish thyroid. You get on Synthroid, your doctor's a rock star, and you are better. But what about 5 out of 6? What about the other 90%? That's you. And guarantee you that's you, because if it wasn't you, you wouldn't be watching this video. So what's going wrong? All right, I'm just going to go through the pattern here of what happens. Your brain send signals through thyroid-releasing hormone to your pituitary gland. This is the master gland. Many, many people have a sluggish pituitary gland. All right? They'll have low T4, low TSH. We have to look for those markers. They have a sluggish pituitary gland. Or they don't have the right chemicals, serotonin or dopamine, being produced in their brain, the happy chemicals. We need to test for that. We can do that. And there's certain things you can do to build that up. So we have to look at the brain, the pituitary gland. If you have the proper TSH, now this is what most of you have been testing for, is TSH, right? If the TSH is high, you have hypo. If it's low, you have hyper. Now what happens is for many of you it goes all over the place because it's an autoimmune thyroid. This is what that means. I keep using the word autoimmune. It means your body looks at its own thyroid gland as foreign tissue, and it goes after it, and it attacks it. So sometimes it'll be hyper, sometimes it'll be hypo, it'll be all over the place, and you can't just take meds for that. You have to get things to calm down. You have to manage that, the condition that's causing that to go up and down. Okay, so TSH causes your thyroid gland to release 97% T4 and 3% T3. They hop in these little taxi cabs, thyroid binding globulin. A lot of people people with Hashimoto's have antibodies to these taxi cabs. So they're going to be all messed up because the taxi cabs themselves are forming antibodies. So what happens is this. 60% of T4 is converted over in your liver to the active hormone T3, 60%. So you probably want to look at your liver, right? Possibly. Another 20% is converted over in your gut. If you have poor gut function, you're probably not having the proper transfer of energy. T4 to T3 isn't transferring over because of what's happening here in the gut. And then 20% transfers over in the extra tissues of the body. So as you can see, it starts in the brain, goes to the pituitary, then goes to the whole body. The thyroid gland is an organ that responds to everything that's happening with the body. So it's kind of like if you have problems with your car and the red light goes on, that's kind of like the thyroid gland. And you bring it to the mechanic, and the mechanic, instead of looking under the hood, works on the red light. And for many of you, taking Thyroid is just working on the red light in your car. You're not looking at what's going on under the hood because you haven't been tested properly, I guarantee it. You probably had T4, T3, maybe TSH tested. There's a whole host of tests we have to do with you. And now this isn't for somebody who is just, looking for, man, maybe I'll see what's going on. I only take on serious patients. If you're not serious about making major life changes and actually getting results, then shut this video off, throw it in the trash, and I'll never see you again. But if you're serious, follow what I'm going to say right now, because there's a lot of things, there's certain things that happen with people with Hashimoto's that you're missing the boat on. Okay? Also, if you smoke, that's another thing. If you smoke, I can't take you on as a patient. All right? So you better quit smoking. All right? You can't get healthy if you can't get oxygen in your body from smoking. All right? So let's talk about sensitivities, because what I find is gluten, all right, as a food sensitivity. Gluten is in wheat, barley, and rye. There's a lot of foods that we can test for that have very similar protein structures to gluten. And if you have Hashimoto's, you probably have a sensitivity to gluten, and it's causing reactions every time you eat it. But we have to test for that. All right, there's other foods too. Milk chocolate, coffee, let's see, potatoes, corn, a lot of grains. We can test for all that now. There's labs out of California called Cyrex Labs that can, without a doubt, tell if you're sensitive to certain foods. It's different than the ELISA tests. It's looking at very accurate testing that have just come up in the last probably 6 to 12 months. Dr. Ari Vajani is the world's leading immunologist. He's come up with these tests, #1 guy in the world. That's what we follow for the food sensitivity testing. So if you're not ready to physically change the way you eat, again, throw this video in the trash and I don't want to see it. But if you're ready to make a change, we have to test for those. So food sensitivity, grains, very important. We're going to do a complete blood workup on you. Glucose, that's huge. You may not have type 2 diabetes yet, but your blood sugar is all over the place. All my patients that have thyroid disease, their blood sugar is bad. It's called dysglycemic. They're low, high, they get irritable after they miss meals. They're tired, they're cranky if they don't get their sugars in. A lot of them have cravings for carbohydrates, grain-based carbohydrates. And they have to go through withdrawal to get better. And that's part of this. People that have gluten intolerance a lot of times have gluteomorphin receptors in their brain, deep in their brain, that are saying, I want the bread and pasta. And we get that to calm down, we do real well. Okay, so food sensitivities, we get a test for that, a complete blood workup. We got to look at a lot of different things, a complete metabolic panel. We take all those ranges, all right, of what we find in the blood, and what you're comparing now your body to is lab ranges. For example, TSH, a medical doctor is going to look at that and say 0.53 is low, 5.5, 5.3 is high, a big broad range. We take those numbers and narrow them down functionally. Where you should be as a healthy human being should be between 1.8 and 3.0. That's a functional range for TSH. Okay, so we have to take all the blood and put it in functional markers. Functional, where you should be as a healthy human being. Not comparing your blood to all the sick, diseased people that have been in that lab in the last calendar year. That's what lab normal is. All right? We don't want to do that. We want to tighten the ranges down. Now, grains, glucose, bad blood sugar, all the blood markers we got to look at. We got to look at your gut. 20% of T4 is converted to T3 in your gut. I almost guarantee you that you have gut problems. All right? Even if you don't have constipation or diarrhea, which you probably do at times, you probably have gut problems. We need to rule that out. There's some tests we can do now that we can actually, it's almost like looking into the gut, and we can see, do you have a lot of good flora, good bugs in your gut, fighting the battle within. You should have a jungle in there of good bugs. If you took all those good bugs in your body that you need to have and put them in your hand, they'd weigh 4 pounds. But most of you with this problem have very poor gut function. Instead of a jungle in your body, in your intestines, fighting the battle, you have a desert. There's not a lot of good stuff in there. So we got to test for that. All right, we got to see, do you have parasites? Do you have molds, yeast, viruses, bacteria? What's happening in that gut? And we see a lot of parasites with people. And if we don't clean your gut up and go through gut rehab, as I call it, for the first 60 days, you're going to have problems. Because this is what happens. If your gut is inflamed, if you have what's called leaky gut, what that means is this. You have this intestinal wall, okay, that's lined with your 70% of your immune system, all right? All the good bugs keep all the stuff going through your intestines so that it doesn't enter your blood. If you have inflammation from different foods that you're sensitive to, or if you just have parasites or junk in your gut that's not healthy, you're going to break down that gut wall, and the proteins that you eat that you're reactive to, that we have to test for, get into your blood and go right to your brain. And then you have inflammation, and you wonder why you have brain fog, why you can't think clearly. And why do my patients get better? Because we find out what's causing that inflammation and get their brain to calm down. Okay? So it makes a lot of sense. Like I said, if this does make sense to you, make an appointment. Don't let all this information go by, because so many people do that. They get all this knowledge, and then they go to their MD and they say, hey, I heard about this chiropractor who's helping people. Your MD's not going to know what's going on. All right? The reason you're watching this video is because you're looking for answers. I always say this. The best predictor of your future is your past. What you've been doing in the past is what you're going to be doing in the future. The results you've gotten in the past, if you continue with that, you're going to continue to have problems and get sicker and sicker and not have the life you want. Okay? So we got to test grains, glucose, gut, the 3 Gs. We got to look at all those things. Okay? Now, if you're tired, if you have energy issues, if you don't sleep, which is most people, they're going to have adrenal problems. We have to look at an adrenal stress index test. That's where you spit into a vial morning, noon, afternoon, and night, and we can see your energy levels. It's super important to get your adrenals to heal. That's one of the most important things I find in my office is people with adrenal fatigue, they just don't have the energy. Okay? So whether you have sugar issues, whether you have anemia, adrenal fatigue, whatever it is, something's causing this to not work properly, and we have to find out the reasons for that. Okay? So I hope this is all making sense to you. What do? We get you on a healthy way of eating that's specifically for you. All right? We use specific botanicals to heal whatever we need to heal, depending on what that is. There's no set program. There's no set protocol. It depends on what's going on with you. What we have to use food, botanicals to get you to heal. Sometimes we have to send you back to your MD. If you have parasites, you might need to use Alinea or some strong drugs to kill them, but we got to look at it. All right? And then if you have a lot of brain issues, we use things like exercise with oxygen therapy. I wrote the book on that, Energize Your Brain, Change Your Life, an Introduction to Exercise with Oxygen Therapy. We use that in the office to get people's brains to work better, because we talked about inflammation in the gut, and proteins break through the gut and get into the blood, into the brain fog, fatigue, inflammation. We got to get the brain to work better. So we have you exercise with oxygen in the office. Sometimes, depends on the person. That's why we have to do an exam, all right, to find out where you're at with this. We use an interactive metronome. It's one of the brain-based therapies we do. It's a timing device to get your cerebellum to work better. We use smell therapy, sound therapies, lots of different things, eyelight therapies, different things to get your brain to work better. So the big thing is this, is that we treat you metabolically, what's happening within, and neurologically. And I can guarantee you that if you haven't been treated this way before, if you get treated this way, you're going to feel a lot better very quickly. The vast majority of my patients in the first 4 to 6 weeks are 50% better. Okay? So I encourage you to make a phone call. Our phone number is 207-438-9339. There may be some information on this web page if you're watching this from a web page over to my left or down below where you can put your information in, and we'll call you back and set up an appointment. We'll go through an exam with you, look at all your labs, and see where you're at, see where you've been, and see the direction we can go with you and how we can change your life and add quality back to your life. Okay? Because if you continue to do what you've always done, you're going to continue to get the results you've always gotten. I hope this video was interesting. I hope I can help you in the near future. This is Jeff Donatello. Have a nice day. Thank you.